Hello, my beautiful light beings. Welcome back to the Magic Exists podcast. I have a wonderful guest here. Her name is Elise Carver. She is a lifelong musician who has been writing spiritual music and recently turned additional attention to offering Kundalini activations and tarot card readings for her clients. I actually received a wonderful in-person Kundalini awakening session a couple months ago, I think in November, out in the South Bay area, and it was wonderful. We'll go into that, but welcome, Elise.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's just start with what is a Kundalini awakening? And what is this session that you have? What does that consist of?
Oh, wow. This could take up like 5 podcasts all in one, but I will try to give you the elevator pitch as to what Kundalini is, what an awakening is, and what activation is, which is what I do. So, Kundalini is considered a universal concept, but it's most easily expressed through Hindu terms. So, just know that it doesn't. You don't have to be Hindu. You don't have to worship any particular deity or anything. But the idea is that it is your sort of life force. It has been with you since the moment you were conceived, and it is a form of Shakti, which is the feminine divine intelligence manifests in everything in creation. So everything that we touch, see, feel is just pulsing with Shakti. And the idea is that this intelligence, this female part of it, basically made us when we are conceived. And then after we sort of got on the train, she coils a few times, 3.5 times, in I don't know, she sort of nests herself down in our root chakra at the base of our spine and hangs out there until awakened by a process of either spontaneous awakening, which can happen to some people, or through a spiritual path where folks have been, really into their meditation and into the devotion and have this moment where, in a moment of grace, if you will, the divine goes, hey, they're ready for this. So folks that are really into Kundalini activation and Kundalini yoga and everything believe that it is sort of it's part of our life's purpose to awaken this Kundalini and get it going, because it is the vehicle for enlightenment. Like all the enlightened souls that have walked the planet, folks the Buddha, Jesus, everybody of that nature was completely, fully Kundalini awakened, whether or not they necessarily knew it or called it something else. And our idea is to hopefully awaken that within ourselves. Now, Kundalini activation is what I do, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you will awaken your Kundalini, because you are only going to experience what you're ready for in an activation. But what I would consider it's like prana energy with the injected aspect of Shakti intelligence, which is the Kundalini vehicle. So in a session, we do sort of an energy transmission and are both inside the resonant Shakti field. And you will therefore go on likely a journey, whether it's relaxation or trauma healing or some visualization, or the possibilities are endless. It's your own body's intelligence and this Kundalini within yourself that is resonating and saying, hey, I need to take you on a journey, and here's what I'm going to take you on. So it's a powerful, powerful thing. It changed my life. Well, going on 2 years ago, we're getting close. And I realized things I had never realized before and everything. So I thought, hey, I need to pursue this further. I need to get trained in how to do this. I need to bring this to more people, because I truly believe that this can fully, entirely change the world, because it opens your eyes completely.
That's so amazing and powerful. And I remember when I had it done back in November, I had just decided, I think a week or two before, that I was leaving the South Bay and moving to Glendale. And there were so many moving pieces of my life that I hadn't had that moment to sit down and really process what was happening. And I had a lot of fear around it. And during that awakening, I remember you had me laying down, and that journey that came up was my higher self showing me my timeline and my path and how much it had shifted from what I had seen before, and showed me all the clients that I was helping and supporting. And after that session, I felt so the fear was gone. I felt so safe. I felt so this is the right decision that you made, even though intuitively, I knew, but it was my logic was still catching up. My logical mind was still
Yes.
oh, did you make the right decision that you're leaving? You gave your 30-day notice within 6 hours of you deciding, this is a lot, and
Yeah.
it felt really it was so powerful. And it was really nice to be supported and held in that powerful space. And so I'm curious for you, you mentioned the word prana. What is prana?
So prana is basically, how would I even, so the air we breathe, the vitality that was in with all of our souls, it's life energy, it's life force. It's circulating through us and with anything that's alive. And the more, like, why breath work can be so important is because it's generating prana and we're getting more of it flowing. If you're, let's say you're a raw foodist, you'll be able to maybe feel a lot of this sort of prana life force energy just coursing through your veins more because it is that force. So yeah, there are a lot of like really active ways of trying to just channel this prana and feel it more and be fully in alignment with as much of it as you can at that particular moment. This is sort of a more passive way of doing that. But yeah, like a lot of folks when they are in a session will be doing things called kriyas, where you're sort of like shaking or gyrating a little bit, or like twitching. Your body's just sort of moving completely involuntarily with all these things that are flowing. And I could go on for days about what might actually be happening, but like it is, we're just tapping into that life force energy, and it has this really cool intelligence aspect of Kundalini involved. And what I thought was really cool, where you said like it sort of bypassed your logical mind. That's the thing that happens. What I love about it is it sort of solves a therapeutic situation, whereas we can go to therapy, like traditional therapy, and get a lot of help from that. But we're working through the logical mind. And with something like this, we're bypassing it, where we're going, hey, you've done a great job of working through this issue or this trauma or whatever it is, trying to think your way out of it. But I'm totally taking the driver's seat for a hot second. So I find a lot of people, myself included, will be in the middle of a session and go, I don't want to think about that right now. I don't want to think about this. I want to drive the boat and make it go a certain way. And you will find that it that's not what the Kundalini has in store for you. It goes, no, no, no. You got to lay back, charge right now for the next hour. So
Like it's whatever's for your highest good, like will come through because it's like such a beautiful session. And I'm curious, like this is probably like a egoic question, but like can someone just like know if they're like activated or not? And probably from that question, it's like you're probably not, right?
I would say really good question. I'd say there's a lot of gray area and questions surrounding whether or not certain people are. I sometimes question whether or not I am, because since I started doing this energy work, I feel a frequent pulse, like a vroom, 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 like happening much more frequently. And I don't know if that actually is a sign that the Kundalini has begun to unravel. Because there's so many signs that like people can go from, I mean, 0 to 100 on the spectrum of all the different symptoms. So mine's probably over at a 20 or something, you know what I mean? So I probably question that maybe I don't. I'm just getting more involved with feeling energy. Having said that, there are some definite signs where a person is like awakened or on their journey, and some of them can be quite jarring if a person has had a spontaneous awakening. Like you could have a car accident or something, and your body have gone through such a intense moment, and that would be a spontaneous awakening that results in some symptoms that are not necessarily expected or desired, and the person may have no contextual clue as to what is going on with them. But there are certain places, I think in West Virginia or Virginia, somewhere on that side of the country, that is specializing in helping folks like this go, hey, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. I am seeing things that I'm not sure are even there. I am experiencing chakras going all crazy. My body is gyrating and I didn't mean it. And I think I'm going insane. Help me. And these folks will help bring them back into balance because they know the science of this. This is not what happens in Kundalini activation sessions. So I don't want to freak everyone out by saying this stuff, because again, it's not, we are not awakening your Kundalini. We are not pulling anything out of you. All we are doing is resonating at a point where wherever you are on your spiritual journey or otherwise, you will resonate at that point. So it's never any more than you can handle. And if, let's say, there was ever something that you're coming up for you that you really just don't want to be a part of, you can always just open your eyes and sit up and you're done. So it's very much, the people that are in the session are in, they're very much in power of what happens. It's a co-creation of this sort of of this therapeutic spiritual moment, and it's very voluntary, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So beautiful. And from having, that one experience, I definitely like want to do another one. I feel like it was so
Oh,
beautiful, and the
sure.
space you hold is so like gentle and soft and like safe. And
Mm.
it's like I definitely, as a practitioner myself of Reiki, I definitely can like feel like whatever energy was like going on or whatever. I don't even know what was happening, right?
Yeah.
But I just like know that the energy was moving and like visions were coming, and I was feeling that sense of safety. And the sense that I got, you said it's like when I think you said Shakti energy is like at the root, right? And then
Hmm.
root chakra is actually like number one, right? And so it's like
Hmm.
1, 2, 3, and then like four is heart, and then you move up to the crown, which is seven. And so what I've heard, right, is like that energy as you clear your chakras in life, like, and go through your personal development journey and like spiritual awakening journey, that energy like moves up to meet like the male energy of the crown. Is that something like that when you do like a Kundalini awakening?
Yeah, if you're gonna basically put it in like Hindu uh like archetypal god and goddess framework, we have Shiva, I believe, who sits at the top of the crown, and that is considered the male counterpart of divine intelligence, the unmanifest. And Shakti is the female part of that divine intelligence who is manifest, and they're literally trying forever to make sweet love as they meet each other. She's like, I gotta get all the way up there and meet my buddy. And he's like, come on, you can do this. Let's awaken you. So that's the thing where like you'll see some really beautiful artwork of the two of them, like in some sort of, I don't know the Kama Sutra, but loving embrace together at the top of the crown. And the idea is that they've met each other, and that those two halves of our divine intelligence have become one. So, yeah, it's like a really poetic, beautiful way of being able to visualize and put into some sort of context these, for many people, foreign concepts. I have been very interested in learning more about the Hindu religion, having started doing this, because I'm like, how did the ancients know so much about this? Like, how? And how do we, with all of our modern science and all the studies about everything going on, know so little? So fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's like that connection. How do we know? It's like opening to the unseen world of like all the universal divine wisdom and
Hmm.
like channeling that energy. And I've been really feeling called to like this Kundalini world. And like even today, one of my clients was like, "Oh yeah, I go to Kundalini yoga every week." And I'm curious, is this like one of those practices that you talk about where it's like you have this like intention down the road and it helps part of support your spiritual awakening journey? Like I've actually never done a class, so I'm not quite sure. And I'm not sure if you have either, if that even ties into like an activation.
You know what's so interesting? So if you go to, like, I've been to a number of Kundalini activations, which is what I do. I've never been to a Kundalini yoga class, and I will frequently, speak to people there that will take a Kundalini activation class and go, "Hey, I have all these questions and how it relates to Kundalini yoga." And oftentimes, the facilitators are like, we don't know. That's a completely different thing, because that's not what we're doing here. Because that's, from what I understand, that is active, an active trying to awaken the Kundalini, an active sort of like through the breath work, through all the energizing of your system full of prana and everything. And we're trying to just get all this energy moving and moving and moving so that the Kundalini can awaken a little bit, or fully. That, I could be totally off base here. Again, I've never been to a Kundalini yoga class, but this is completely passive, and I don't think they at all butt heads. Not like they're just sort of in different, you know, same church, different pews, if you will.
I love that. And I feel like I'm kind of even getting that sense with like Reiki too. Like what you said, like
Mm,
same church but different pew, like cuz
mhm.
Reiki is divine energy, and it is more passive as well, right? If you're like you're receiving and they're
Yeah.
like kind of moving the energy through, but it's like a different like purpose, just to like align your body more and not dealing with the specifically like that specific energy of the Shakti, but maybe just like clearing your energy and your emotions to align and balance and bring harmony back to like your soul frequency in your body, in your first level, your auric field.
Yeah, and I am not a Reiki master like yourself, but I did a little bit of level one Reiki, and I can at least say that and I've heard this from a lot of people who are masters of both, that the frequency is different. It does feel different. It feels very different to me. And And they're both really, 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 really great. But you would use Reiki in situations where you wouldn't use Kundalini activation. You know, if someone's hurting physically or needs to calm their nervous system in a certain way, you Reiki's for that. If someone needs to say, what does divine intelligence have in store for me today? Let me go on a journey. That's Kundalini, you know? So yeah. And one can be like Kundalini can be very relaxing, but it can also be extremely energizing. And it can also kind of just with the journeys, I frequently tell everybody, hey, hang in there on a journey because it's therapeutic often. You will go on a full ride, seeing things you don't want to see, hearing things you don't want to hear, facing these quote unquote demons that once you have arrived at the end of the journey, it has made an entire loop. There has been forgiveness, there has been purging, there has been realization, and it is you open your eyes at the end of a session knowing more, feeling differently. So, but yeah, you can face some real shadow work, some real dark things in a session that will resolve themselves. So it's really a beautiful, beautiful thing. I've definitely come to a lot of conclusions through that process that I never would have, um, in a logical, what am I trying to say, conventional therapy setting.
I love that you say that because a lot of talk therapy, you're right, is like part of the conscious mind. And what do we live out of? Actually, it's actually 95% of the subconscious, of the
Yeah,
unconscious. And so you're tapping into a resource in which is energy, which is 100% of what we consist of, what we see, what is like consciousness expanded. And so it kind of feels like everyone should be like, doing these spiritual awakening. And it's like so beautiful to get a different perspective from something that I have heard so little about, like in this industry. And I'm
sure.
curious, like, how can someone, like, how do you advise like everyone to, like, maybe if they're curious about this, to just like book a session, or is there like work that they need to do beforehand, or yeah, like how can they use this like practically?
That's a great, great question. So here's what I would say. I think what's really important for folks to get the most out of a session is no, you don't have to have any prerequisites. The only prerequisite you have to have is just to be open. Just to like not have a mind that's decided that this is bogus, because then you will get nothing out of it because you're not participating in the co-creation of this moment. And your body and your mind is like, no, I'm close to it. So therefore it's not going to work. But as long as you can say, all right, I don't know what this is, but I'm open to it, that is actually a beautiful thing because I think a lot of people that don't necessarily have a whole lot of expectations end up having a really surprising experience because they're just open. They're like, let's see where this takes me. And they don't have any preconceived notions like, oh, I'm going to astral travel. Oh, I'm going to meet my guides. Oh, I'm going to see ancestors. Oh, I'm going to completely purge this out of my system. I have a problem with having had some really awesome experiences. So I have to remind myself to just stay open and not be like, okay, that was great. Let's one up that one. Let's see, because that's not what it's about. Your body and your intelligence will say, here's what you need to learn. So full disclosure, for the last 4 journeys I've been on, I've been given the same lesson. And it says, you haven't learned this lesson yet. So we have nothing more to talk about until you start implementing this lesson. I mean, talk about frustration. I'm like, wait, I'm stuck, and it's very sweet and very loving. It's the most loving energy ever, and it goes, hey, I'm telling you what you need to know, whether or not you want to know it. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. So anyway, my point is, the only prerequisite is to be open and to just have, to try to drop your expectations at the door. There are a couple physical, recommendations to abstain from alcohol for a day or 2 or 3. That would be great. To try to not eat a big meal like right before, like come in as light on your body as possible. Because if your digestive system is like really working on something, or if you're trying to detox from a night of big drinking, your body's not going to be ready to receive this energy and process it well. You might just end up feeling kind of gross. So it's like, try to come with as clean of a slate as possible. And that's
Yeah,
it.
that's so beautiful. And I love what you talk about, like the different frequencies. And because I want to ask you about tarot when you channel that energy and like kind of the different energy that comes through. Because I do feel like that in all modalities, they're all divine
Mm,
energy. Like Reiki's divine energy, Kundalini feels like a very divine energy, but the
mhm.
frequency is different. And when I, for example, channel light language, that frequency is so different than when I'm channeling Reiki. And it's all
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, but it's just like you have to attune or, be open to like that other frequency that maybe you've never felt before. And so I'm curious, as a tarot card reader as well, like
Sure.
how does that frequency differ?
Okay, so what I guess, and it's funny that you were mentioning a frequency for tarot because I've never thought of it that way. But I'm like, ooh, maybe I need to think of it that way. Like this is opening up some really cool possibilities. What I do in terms of tarot is I do consider it divination, and I do consider it to be communicating with spirits and ancestors and our spirit guides and those who are here to help us on this journey. Um, and what I do is I say, I literally am like, hey peeps, what's up? How are you? Hello, thank you for being here. And let's say if I'm going to read for you, I'm like, okay, here I am with Dani. Let's welcome her team of light. Let's have a reading that gives her the best guidance with full of light, love, and direction. So um I sort of just call upon your guides and my guides, our teams of light, as I call them, to sit together. And when I'm doing that, I very frequently feel it opening up at the top of the crown. I frequently feel like shivers going up along my back. Sometimes I feel like pressure on my back in like weird ways. And it doesn't always happen that way. Like if you're reading tarot at a fair, it's gonna be really hard to fully feel all the feels with like all of the stuff going on around you. It doesn't mean it's at all less poignant or real or doesn't resonate as much. It totally does. Because I keep making sure to do this. And I know there's a lot of people that don't, and I'm sure they have just as much um, luck. Because let's put it this way, does my team of light and your team of light need to know that I'm talking to them in order to be there with us? No. they're here, they're hanging out, they're watching everything, and they're here to help guide us. But at the end of the day, it does feel really good to sort of open that space together with someone in that moment, and it sort of gives us sort of reverence to the moment. So that's what I do. But yeah, I feel that energy in that moment differently. I try to remember to give gratitude at the end for a session, but sometimes I forget. um but yeah, now next time I read, I'm gonna be like, all right, let's go into a more frequency zone. Let's see what this feels like. Let's try to channel from even outside of the realm of our spirit guides and those folks. You
Yeah.
you got my gears turning, Dan.
I love that. And I love when you say, because I know you do go to a lot of fairs, and you do tarot for like a lot of people. And when I do Reiki for like big groups, like I was doing a lot of collaborations last year, I feel like my clairsentience, like that feeling kind of
Mm,
not gets turned off, but it's like, it's different when I have one client, and then I feel something in my leg and then I feel their leg and it's like, oh yeah, there's something going on here. It's like less about that and more about like being the vessel that is like offering that wisdom or healing or whatever that is. I feel like it's so beautiful because it doesn't mean it's like wrong or right, right? Like it's not like, oh, okay, I know you're here now. It's gonna be like more powerful. It's like
yeah,
you're right. It's like I'm trusting that I trust myself and I am providing this beautiful message or healing and like just trusting that they're there to support the higher good for the higher consciousness and the collective.
totally. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And it is interesting because when you're in a chaotic moment like that, I mean, it's funny how energy can find its way to you through all that madness. And also, you do have to be, at least with tarot, I feel like it could be very draining when you're just working so much with all these different people back to back. At one point, I had kind of an embarrassing moment where I really had to use the bathroom, and I was starving. It was just like I've been reading for hours, and with one client, I was practically hypoglycemic or something was going on. I was like about to pass out, and cards were going everywhere. I couldn't shuffle to save my life, and I was just apologizing, like, I am sorry. I felt like I was in an energetic vortex, like I wasn't even inside my own self. All right, after that, hang up a sign, be back in 15 minutes, use the bathroom, get some water, eat a little food, and then we're back. But these things really do take a toll on people energetically. And it's interesting because you do have to take that into consideration when you're doing a fair or when you're doing a workshop or when you're doing a group of people. Because, yeah, it does take a toll.
I was just on a podcast, I think it was like a couple days ago, and they asked me like, what does it feel like to be in the Akashic records? And it's exactly
Mm,
what you're describing, like where I'm so tired because I'm like haven't eaten, haven't drank water, and it's like that energy you're just feeling like depleted because you've been like running so much, like as if for me
yeah.
it's like I ran 3 miles and I'm like so thirsty, and like my body has just been through it, and I'm like out of shape, and I'm at the end, and I'm like, okay, what do I need now? Right? Like nourishment, water. But that's similar to when I'm reading the Akashic records. Like, for example, today you're my fourth like event, right? So it's like I had a
Mm,
podcast episode this morning, I had two readings, and now here, and I'm starting to feel that like depletion. So I know after
yeah.
this, like I need to ground. I need to, whether that energetically be like
Mm,
putting my feet into earth, or like imagining it like roots of a tree coming in, eating something really grounding, uh, like tomatoes, I feel like are always really grounding, like the red root chakra energy, or
yeah,
bananas. I don't
that's
know, like are
great.
always, yeah. And then like do some kind of yoga to really get back into my body, and then like remove
Mhm.
all energy that isn't mine, because I've been channeling other
Mm,
people's guides, all day. And it's like, okay, I'm gonna like come back to my soul, call back all my power. And in the beginning, honestly, like I feel like I would not know how to ground properly, and I would be in
mm,
everyone's energy, and it would like that feeling, of like kind of like you're throwing cards everywhere, and like I would be in that
yeah,
state for like days, because I didn't know like how to properly like ground in set container. But I do feel like now I have this like more of a mastery around that anyways.
that's great. Yeah, that's great. I feel like I have to remind myself of those things when I'm in those situations because I'm a mom. I've got a 3-year-old. I also teach a lot of music lessons, so I kind of go right into like, okay, that's done. Action, 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 and all the like more, parts of our three-dimensional world. And then later on, I'm like, why can't I sleep? Or why am I so tired? You know what I mean? Some level of needing to just remember to hit the reset button, you know? And tarot, I am surprised at how you wouldn't think it'd be an energetic, you know, what am I trying to say? Like drain, but it really can be, especially depending on what kind of information you're giving the person. I mean, tarot, I think, is one of the most beautiful things for self-development, but I do read reversals. I try to be as real as possible with people. And it's hard, It's really hard where I'm like, hey, yeah, so there's not a whole lot of good news in this area, but let's figure out how to make it, an affirming, a better situation. Let's give some advice here. But yeah, it's like that, at least for me, who's a person who's a little conflict averse, it's tough. I
I
love it,
understand.
but it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a reading actually this morning, and I felt like this girl's grandma was going to pass away. And that's like not news that you want to just like provide someone, right? Like it's very hard, and
Yeah.
it's like as readers, it's this like beautiful discernment to like want to provide information for their highest good. And
Yeah.
really show it in a way that, like you said, like, well, this is what's coming up. Like how can we end that cycle and really bring more light into your path, and like how can we
Yeah,
make it better? And it's so
totally.
funny because like now I'm at that point that like I really trust what's coming through. Like in the past I might have not always like revealed that information and just kept it to myself. um
Right.
but now it's like, and then right after I revealed it, she's like, I've been feeling that the last month. And I was like, so it was really
Mm,
validating, and then it's like there's going to be a lot of grief, but this year, you're really going to be able to work through it because of the resources you've had, and so it was just like something now that she can prepare for this year, so that she can be, continue to lean in her joy. And so it can be hard and discerning, but in just like to say it, and when you connect, for me, I connect to my heart. So it's like I
mm.
always, my intention is like to say it like unconditionally, with love and compassionately.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I just always feel like I want to know what the tarot has in order so I can grow, I mean, there's a huge thing in the tarot world, whether or not you read reversals, cards upside down, because a lot of times the upside down cards it can be the opposite of what or it could be weakened energy, blocked energy, energy that you're just not necessarily open to or admitting is there. There's some sort of blockage there, but frequently it's an opposite. And who wants to pull out a card that's just all sunshine and bubbles right side up, but not with it upside down, So anyway, I love pulling out a bunch of cards and people are like, oh, they're all upside down. That's not gonna, like, wait. It doesn't necessarily mean bad things. But yeah, sometimes it can be like, hey, this will be a big challenge for you. Let's figure out how to make it less of a challenge. So,
That's so beautiful. Yeah, I didn't know that. I haven't really gotten into tarot.
well, I'd love to read for you sometime, although I'm sure that I probably won't be pulling out any surprises given that you do Akashic Records.
It's
Yeah.
interesting because a lot of people who come to me, they're scared to see what their soul has to tell them.
Oh, really?
And
Yeah, I can see
yeah,
why that would be a little
and I
scary.
feel like people are always like scared to see the shadow. And you're like so open, you're like, I want to see where I can improve and grow. And like a lot of us are like have that mentality, but a lot of us don't. And like it's interesting because recently I've been seeing a lot
Yeah.
more light workers, but a lot more people are scared. And to see that
Oh,
part of it, because it's like deep
that's
down in their
interesting.
intuition, they know they're not on the right path, but they're too scared to like get out of it. And so I oftentimes when I feel someone like that, I send them love so that they could have that courage to really look beneath, because when they see their shadow, people are like, oh, the shadow, like I don't like that, right? The reversal card, like, oh, that's a part of me that I want to hide and hide away. But no, when you embrace and accept that part of you, you can ironically like integrate that energy into your body and like actually bring light upon it. And it's actually like so wonderful and beautiful and like a way to expand your consciousness.
Totally. Yeah, shadow work's the most powerful stuff. I feel like if you ignore it, it grows, and if you transmute it, it lessens, you know, but you have to face it. It's not going to go away if you're just like, well, I'm just going to put that shadow part of me in the closet. Bye-bye. It's like, no. So, yeah, and that shadow stuff can be really, really, really it can be difficult for people, you know? I think Kundalini sessions are a great way of addressing some of that sometimes, you know? I've had a few Kundalinis where I really just yep, hello me, there I am. That's my not great self, not excuse me, that the not great part of myself. And I was like, oh, I understand you now, and I understand the way why you felt that way. I understand why you did that thing. Wow. And then I'll come to like a full journey of like anger and sadness and understanding and acceptance and then forgiveness and then joy and then laughter. I laugh a lot in my sessions because you end up feeling like there's this beautiful level of absurdity for all the things that we've decided are the most, terrible things that happen in our lives. And actually, like, if you really boil it down, they're really kind of funny, but you have to go through a journey in order to get to that part where you can laugh about it. So I encourage everyone to do a little bit of shadow work. You don't have to do a lot of shadow work, but just a little bit ends up being so helpful to a person, right? Just to
Yeah.
acknowledge what it all is, and to start.
And I love your sessions because like for me when I'm doing an Akashic reading, like I'm expressing like what's being channeled verbally. And whereas a Kundalini activation like you're doing, all of this is going through the person in their mind's eye. Like you're not speaking as you're holding space, it's like you're allowing that experience for them to have the experience. So I feel like it's a little bit more like opening for that. But then also they
Uh,
have to trust themselves a little bit too to like be able to be open, like you said, for that experience.
yeah, if it's okay with you, let me just give everybody a little rundown on what a session looks like, because I realize we're talking about something that a lot of people might not have any sort of framework about what it looks like. Literally, you go and lay down on a yoga mat and close your eyes and you listen to an hour of music. And the music takes you on a journey, but while it's happening, I hold us in a resonant Shakti field and go to each person and kind of intuitively feel out where energy needs to move, what needs to be touched, what needs to be moved. And, if folks don't want to be touched either, that's 100% okay. It also works on Zoom. It shockingly works on Zoom. My brain cannot figure out how this happens, but it is absolute proof to me that, yeah, energy transmutes all bounds, and there is no time space in the way that my mind thinks there is. It's weird, but some of my most powerful sessions have been via Zoom. I can't explain it besides it works. And that's a great way for folks that, might not necessarily want to cry in front of somebody else, might not necessarily want to unpack what they have to unpack, but they can do it at home on a computer screen and no one else knows what they're feeling. The only person that can see anything is me. And I don't know what you're experiencing either. I just see people laying down and that's it. So yeah, it's so fascinating. That's why I really love at the end we do a little bit of unpacking. No one has to say anything, but if you want to share, the sharing can be really like a beautiful thing where people in the room will go, I experienced that too. Oh my gosh, I experienced that too. And there are really, really fascinating coincidences. There's no coincidences, but I mean, what folks would say would be a coincidence where I thought of that same thing at the same time you thought of that something. Oh wow, I felt an opening here, so did I. I suddenly was seeing dragons in my mind's eye. Really? Well, so was I. That happens a lot. And it's really cool because then we become like, I consider every single session to be like a sort of energetic family made in that moment, because everyone's going to remember like these really powerful sessions. Who else had a really powerful session there? And what sort of connected each other? What sort of similar stories we all have? What sort of similar issues we have to unpack, and what realizations we come to. It can be really, really powerful.
That's so beautiful. And like, yeah, and they're all like-minded people kind of going for the same reasons or similar reasons. Yeah. So you're offering currently tarot card readings, Kundalini activations via Zoom. Where can people find you to book this like wonderful session?
So I have a little fledgling website called songofshakti.com. So Song of Shakti spells Shakti, songofshakti.com. You can check out what a Kundalini activation Zoom session kind of looks like. I also do it in person, but I have an offering for your listeners. If you email me at songofshakti@gmail.com, that's the email address. And just mention this podcast, you can get a free group Kundalini activation on Zoom.
That's so sweet, Elise. Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
I think that'll really benefit my followers and all the people who might be like drawn to this. It's gonna be so beautiful.
Yeah, I just think it's a beautiful modality that isn't seeing enough people. And a lot of people just don't know that it works on Zoom. It works on Zoom. Come check it out. Mention this podcast and you get a free session.
Beautiful. And I'll link everything below in the show notes as well. So someone can just go directly to your email or your website and they can like check you out. And is
Great.
there any last piece of like wisdom that wants to come through?
I think what just came to me was just don't be afraid. There's nothing to fear about anything in life, number one. But the one thing that I keep coming back to within my sessions, within any work that I'm doing spiritually, is that fear is an illusion and there's no reason to be afraid of anything. Everything I've ever been afraid of is not real. It's just not real. And this session is one of those things where I have a lot of lovely, wonderful family members, friends with 2 feet firmly on this earth that are like a little freaked out about the Kundalini activation session because they, again, same thing with the Akashic Records. It's like, I don't want to see, I don't want to know. Why not? Wouldn't your life be that much more amazing and full and open to possibility if you knew the things that your soul is trying to tell you? If you knew the wisdom that your higher self is saying, hey, this will help you. It might be a little different than what you'd expect, but it will never, ever lead you astray. There's nothing to be afraid of. That's
I love it. I love it so much. Well, thank you so
it.
much, Elise.
Thank
And
you. Thank you, Dani. I really appreciate this time with you.